Hi there, folks. It's Jonathan Denwood from WP-Tonic, and this is a video that's going to be part of the WP-Tonic's weekly newsletter. And in this video, I give my summary of what we discuss during the WP-Tonic Roundtable show, which you can watch live on the WP-Tonic Facebook group page or the WP-Tonic YouTube channel live every Friday at 8:30. And we had a discussion this Friday, the 1st of October 2021, and I'm just going to choose some of the stories that we discussed that I found the most interesting, and I'm going to give my personal views. My views have nothing to do with the panel's views. My views are outrageous. I've been put into the sidelines. The panel have rejected me and said that I can talk in public to you, the tribe, but I've got to do it on my own. So I've accepted their judgment, tribe. So here we go. So we started with story one, which was the 10-year anniversary of WooCommerce. And it's been a fantastic ride. It was it's been a fantastic journey for WooCommerce. The founders, who were based in South Africa, a couple of them I've interviewed on the WP-Tonic interview show, and they seem a great team, and they had a fantastic payday when they decided to sell WooCommerce to Automatic. But in the early days, it was a journey that was controversial. It was controversial how it began. It began by forking an initial product that the founders of WooCommerce were part of. This is one of the great strengths of WordPress. People can come together and work on a project. That project became semi-commercialized. The people that initially worked together to build it weren't part of that commercialization process. They also felt it wasn't being done right, blah, blah, blah. There was a lot of back and forth. There's two sides about precisely what went on. But what became WooCommerce, they forked the original shopping cart WordPress plugin and did their own thing by utilizing also the code and also attracting some of the developers that was working on the original project and also the commercial side. They attracted them to WooCommerce. They got a fair bit of heat about this, and there was a fair bit of comments on Twitter and banter and criticism. But the fundamental fact, which we express in the Friday show, is that they were totally legally and morally totally okay in what they did. They had every right to fork. WordPress is at its core totally open source. If you develop on the platform, if you develop a plugin on the platform of WordPress, your plugin, it can be taken, the code can be taken, and anybody can do anything they like with your code. And that's the name of the game. There's been a load of back and forth about, no, it's not legal to do that. I can defy the agreement. I can garden wall it. I can do all sorts of things to guard the code so people don't have access to the original code. All these things are breaking the open source agreement that you've done with the WordPress community. And the people that try and do this totally know what they've bought into, or they should know. And basically, they're the sleazy people, not the people that actually take the code and adapt it. Now, what you can own, and you've got every right to defend it, is a trademark and a brand, the branding assets that are linked to your trademark. And actually, to have a trademark that has any value, you are legally obliged to defend your trademark. So people don't realize this is why when people feel that you have encroached on their trademark, that's why they're so active in coming and bringing that to your notice, because if it can be proven that you have a trademark and you don't actively defend it, and somebody really does copy your trademark, your logo, the value of your brand, and then they can prove that this person and that person also did the same as what you are accusing or going after did, but you never went after these people, your case will probably be kicked out of court. So people, by the way, I'm not an expert on this. On our panel, we've got Spencer Forum, who was a trained lawyer, and I don't think he's a trained copyright lawyer, but he is an experienced business individual and also was a trained lawyer. So he's, I feel he would say everything I've just said is correct. But there's a lot of misunderstanding in the WordPress community about this particular subject, and it isn't that complicated. You know, the code, if you're building on WordPress, the code is available to anybody. Anybody can do what they like with it. The branding assets, your name of your company, the logo, all the rest of that, no, they can't copy that, or they can, and you've got every right legally, if you have copyrighted it, which I suggest that you should, you've got every right to go out after them. So I just thought I'd put that bit in. Now let's go with one of the other stories, which is non-WordPress focused, and that is the continued saga of Elizabeth Holmes and, you know, Feminos and her trial, which has been going on for the past 3 to 4 years. Now, I've made it really clear what my opinions of Elizabeth Holmes are. So I'm not going to bore you by going on a rant about her personally. I feel, I'm just going to say that I personally feel that she's a hardcore female sociopath, a drifter of the Supremo. But what fascinates me and why I brought the story back to the panel and why I'm discussing it now is how, if you're from a certain class, a certain group in the society, it's almost like you become untouchable. And the same, and it's not just something peculiar to American society. The same thing applies to British society and to most Western societies, and it might apply to all societies in the world. But I have noticed, if you're in with the in crowd economically, politically and socially, which Elizabeth has been from the moment she was born, her father was a successful business executive with Enron, the notorious energy company. He managed to walk away from that mess without being any kind of real financial or personal damage done to him. He then, to my knowledge, and I might be wrong, entered into the Washington set. Some of her family are extremely well connected. She went to Stanford University, which is, you know, if you manage to complete your graduate, you know, unless you're a maniac, you're never going to starve. Put it that way. But she decides in her sophomore year just to drop out, even though she's taken the place of maybe a poorer student who could have done what her course. It really didn't have much value for her. I sense a level of privilege and which goes with her character. And she manages, because she's part of this elite set in Washington, in New York, and in Silicon Valley, to be taken serious. This is an individual that's 19 that has no scientific knowledge or to the level, to, in my opinion, to be taken seriously. We're not talking about building our app here or building a SaaS, successful SaaS-based company here. And don't get me wrong, just doing those things is a great achievement and takes enormous dedication and hard work. But we are talking about biology, maths, and this lady had no real credibility, yet she can be taken seriously, be financed, be able to introduce herself to people that we wouldn't even be given a minute. Then she, in my opinion, she demonstrates over a number of years of total psychopathy, lying, treating people badly. And then she's found the truth comes out and everything implodes. And then she's on to her next target, which is her husband. I understand there's quite a sizable age difference between the two people. In some ways, as an English person, I don't want to take this up. But in my opinion, he got besotted by her. She got a clause into him. Her husband is an extremely wealthy individual who inherited an enormous amount of money from his family. He is also extremely privileged and lives in a bubble. She shows no real remorse for her actions. It doesn't even seem to register in her consciousness. What I've seen, the gravity of the extent of her line manipulation. But I'm going to leave it at that because it's starting to seem a bit like a personal assassination. But what really interests me about the case and about her is that we've seen this with politicians from certain politicians from the left, from the Democratic Party and from the Republican Party. Nothing ever seems to stick. Nothing ever seems to really affect these people. Things that if we were found or accused of, our careers and probably our personal life would be extremely damaged. So let's go on to another WordPress story, and that is Divi. Is Divi working on a secret Gutenberg Block Builder project? And it's a great YouTube video, puts a great argument, great question. I think really the panel had some great insights about this, about in some ways what Divi is doing on their blog is its purpose, which is to drive traffic to Divi and then convert those people into Divi customers, you know. And so, yes, they write a lot of Divi articles, but that is the main purpose of a commercial blog site. So because they're writing a lot of Divi articles, there is no real linkage to them probably also building some secret project. Sorry. But on the other hand, I was going to say the writings on the wall, but that would be unfair. What I mean is they've got an interesting problem on their hand. They have to keep the existing Divi user base, which is considerable and very passionate about Divi. I've never been part of that community. I've never been a real passionate supporter of Divi. I don't hate Divi. I think the team behind it are excellent. I think the founder is a fantastic individual. My position about Divi is very similar to what my position was with Genesis and the founders of Genesis, Brian Clark and Brian Gardner, the two Brians, two great, impressive individuals that really built up a great business in the WordPress ecosystem. But I wasn't a great fan of Genesis either, or a great fan of Studio Press, not because I thought the company was not a great company. I just wasn't my thing. And Sally, who's a regular that's been on the show for the past 6 or 7 years on this winding journey of mine into the world of media and podcasting, she's consistently been a Studio Press user, developer, and total fangirl. I have no problem. I just haven't, it's not my bag. And the same thing applies to Divi. But I think both Genesis and Divi have a similar problem. They've got very passionate and very large user groups, but they know that if the company is going to continue to grow, and this is my personal view, what people don't understand in business, and this is why at a certain stage you should sell your business, is that if you're not driven and you're not growing it, it's actually going backwards. Even though financially in the user base, things might have, levels are the same. If you're not growing the business, in fact, it's actually dying, it's going backwards. And that's something that a lot of people don't realize. But so they've got a problem. Yes, they probably can keep their user base quite high, and people will drop out. It will slowly decline, but it won't be people leave using WordPress, shock horror, or they retire, or they give up on why they need Divi or Studio Press. That that happens every month, every year. Subscriptions slowly fade away. So you've got to get new people entering your world, the world of Studio Press or Divi. How are they going to do that in obviously a world of Gutenberg? Well, I don't think they've got the resources, or they would be prepared to take the risk of forking, doing really their own version of WordPress. And the only company that I think that will attempt to do that, or have to do it in some ways, Elementor. I think because I don't think there's real hatred, but there is obviously. I don't think Elementor is the top of the Christmas card list of Automatic. I just don't believe that. And I think it works the same way. I don't think either of these two companies hate one another, but because of business and business logic, it's pretty obvious to me that Elementor, who have the finance, who have the reasoning why they would want to do this, or feel that they have to, I think Elementor will do a fork of WordPress, and they have the resources and the user base for that to some extent to be successful, to produce a really quality company and be successful. Can it become as successful as WordPress native under the stewardship and quasar ownership of Automatic? Probably not. But that also is in the hands of Automatic. And having a credible alternative, I think, is beneficial to the WordPress community anyway. So I think having two really quality companies really going head to head is quite beneficial. Now, when it comes to Divi and Studio Press, I don't think they would want to do that. The risks I don't think they have the capital. And obviously that doesn't apply to StudioPress so much as Divi, because StudioPress is under the stewardship of WP-Tonic. But I don't think WP-Tonic really want to enrage, probably enrage is too strong a word, to get into a difficult relationship to that level with Automatic. I think they find it quite beneficial in their relationship with Automatic. They've also got other things that they need to focus on, which is their competition with Liquid Web and getting to the stage where either they sell the company to a private investor or they go public. Their main focus is to get to that stage before Liquid Web, and they are beating Liquid Web considerably in that business objective, in my opinion. It's not, you know, I've got the greatest respect for Chris Lemmer, but, you know, I think they're really against a vulnerable executive team at WP-Tonic, WP Engine, and it's just been too difficult for them. We discussed this, and I discussed this in last week's video and newsletter, and I think that's factual myself. So I don't see WP Engine wanting to fork or do that, but both them have to kind of develop a new way of offering value that's linked to Gutenberg, but is different enough so people still want to be part of either the Genesis community or part of the Divi community. And it will be really interesting to see how these two great companies actually deal with this very tricky stage in both their companies' existence. The final thing I want to talk about, and it's outside the world of WordPress, is Facebook and what Professor Galloway has said in his own newsletter. Professor Galloway, you know, I think he's a fascinating, and he's very like Jason Ganakakis, you know, of This Week in Starters. He is a controversial figure. Funny enough, Jason thinks he's useless and he's not a great fan. And I think Professor Galloway ain't a really great fan of Jason. So that is, you know, I leave that to them and their internal squabble. But let's get on to his last newsletter. And to say that, you know, I've made my own feelings around Facebook and around Mark Zuckerberg really quite clear. You know, I consider Mark to be a total sociopath, supremo of the highest order. I also feel that he has high functioning autism. I think there's about 3 or 4 very successful individuals. I think Elon Musk, you know, he's admitted that he, in his opinion, he already feels that he has a certain level of autism. I think there's quite a number, and I think these, what I call spectrum conditions, and I have one of them myself, which is dyslexia. I think these spectrum conditions, there's a number of people in tech that have these conditions, and I really do think it affects, in my opinion, but I'm not a clinical psychologist, I'm just a lay person, so I'm just basing this on my own observations. I could be totally wrong. In my opinion, he definitely, in my opinion, has clear autistic elements that he clearly shows. He does have a total lack of empathy towards people. He really clearly sees people as just inanimate objects to fulfill something that has to be achieved. He's always had this. Some people say, you know, he's just a sociopath. Jason from This Week in Startups, he's just called out, Jay called out Mark as just a sociopath. I think it's a little bit more complicated than that. I think it's a combination of sociopathic tendencies with autism myself. But I will be having a story with Shelley, with a clinical psychologist in the next few weeks on the WP-Tonic show, and I'll be putting that to Sherry. Obviously, she won't be prepared to remark about individuals. That would be breaking her own professional guidance, but I'm sure she'll have some general views. My real hatred is not for Mark Zuckerberg. My real hatred is the executive team at Facebook, because they should know better than they do know better. And what's come out in the Facebook papers, which if you don't know, is about Facebook doing its own research about how their platforms really damage certain groups of young people, and especially young girls between the ages of 12 to 16. They have, for an extended period of time, they have had this research and they've sat on it, and they've not been prepared to share it with academia when they've been asked for the research. That they've denied sharing it, and they've decided to do nothing real of any, apart from PR spin, to do anything based on it. The main reason it would affect the bottom line and the green, which is the only reason why these executives are executives at Instagram or Facebook. They are a pretty motley, immoral group of people. They are the lowest of the low, in my opinion. How they look in the mirror and then go and do what they do. They don't have autism. They're not suffering from maybe a personality disorder that we classify. They just are willfully blind. You know, there's a legal term for it, actually, willful indifference. That's what I accuse the executive team at Facebook and Instagram for. Willful indifference, which is, you can be taken to court for that, actually. It can actually cost you a lot of money if you're found guilty of it, and that's what I accuse them of, willful indifference. I'm going to wrap it up. This has gone on, it's probably gone on a little bit, but hopefully you found it interesting. If you do, give us a thumbs up, give the channels a thumb up, give this video a thumb up, and subscribe. It really tells Google that I'm saying something that's of some interest to you, the audience. I'll be back next week with my remarks, my views, my personal views about our WP-Tonic Roundtable show. I'll see you soon, folks. Bye.